action is taken, it should be linked to restoring civil rights, the rule of law, and the full egalitarian, meaningful, and safe participation of women in all discussions on the future of Afghanistan. Thank you very much. I go back to my role as President of the Council, and I give the floor to the representative of Afghanistan.
Thank you, Mr. President, for convening this meeting, and I commend you for your excellent leadership of the Council for this month. And I thank SRSG, Ms. Rosa Otanbayev, and Mr. Ramesh and Ambassador Jose de la Gasca, Chair of the 1988 Sanctions Committee, and Ms. Shahrzad Akbar for their comprehensive and insightful briefings. I thank the previous speakers for reaffirming their commitments to continue supporting the fundamental human rights of the people of Afghanistan, particularly women and girls, and for their ongoing efforts to help bring about real peace based on the will of the people in a stable, secure, and united Afghanistan. I also extend our appreciation to all donors, the UN system, as well as national and international NGOs, for remaining engaged and continuing to provide vital humanitarian and life-saving support to the people of Afghanistan. Moreover, I would like to commend the United Arab Emirates as the co-pen holder of Afghanistan file and all other outgoing members of the Council for their support to the people of Afghanistan. Their commitment to peace and security, support for the stability in Afghanistan, and advocacy for human rights, especially for women and girls, deserves our utmost appreciation. Mr. President, as Afghanistan enters its third year under Taliban's repressive and unilateral rule, the country remains confronted with myriad of complex challenges and uncertainty. A staggering 29 million people are in need of humanitarian aid. And the fundamental rights of women and girls, such as the right to work and access to education, are systematically denied. Female employees of non-governmental organizations and the United Nations face restrictions on their ability to work, while female protesters are subjected to daily detention and torture. Additionally, targeted killings of Shia scholars and our fellow Hazara compatriots persist, along with extrajudicial killings of former security and defense forces. The growing presence and activities of terrorist groups in Afghanistan pose escalating and wide-ranging security threats to the country, the region, and wider world. Furthermore, the decline in humanitarian aid, natural disasters, forced migrant returns, unemployment, and poverty contribute to the prevailing uncertainty about the future. It's crucial to recognize that the Taliban have not only failed to address these challenges, but have exacerbated them. Since their forced takeover, there has been a systematic erosion of human rights, particularly the rights of women and girls, leading to gender apartheid. This not only violates human rights, but directly contradicts Afghanistan's obligations under international law, including the Convention on the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Unfortunately, it's due to the Taliban's policies and the humanitarian crisis that the human capital of Afghanistan, including the youth, educated and professional individuals, former civil servants, and military personnel, are either unemployed or forced to leave the country. It is evident that the current circumstances are primarily as a result of the Taliban's persistent repressive policies in regard to their disregard for the demands of the Afghan people, the political impasse, the absence of a legitimate national government, coupled with the lack of a coherent and coordinated strategy by the international community to address the current tragic situation in Afghanistan. Mr. President, the key question is what should we do and what the international community can do. In this context, let me thank the members of the Security Council for adopting Resolution 2679 and the UN Secretary General and his special coordinator for presenting the independent assessment report to the Security Council. The findings of the independent assessment report are commendable in their objectivity and depth, shed light on some of the challenges our nation faces, and serves as a critical reminder of the responsibilities shouldered by the international community, including this Council, towards Afghanistan. While the report falls short of adequately recognizing the Taliban as the primary actor in the current crisis, their repressive policies, human rights violations, and certain aspects of the current situation in Afghanistan, we in general appreciate this timely and much-needed report. It can serve as a solid foundation and a guiding document for initiating discussions to address existing problems and fundamental challenges. Furthermore, the report's key recommendations offer a path for progress and ensuring positive trajectory for the way forward. We welcome the very core message of the assessment report on the fact that the status quo is not acceptable nor sustainable, and that the current international approach to Afghanistan is not working. We further welcome the report's specific emphasis on restoring the fundamental rights of all citizens, particularly women and girls, and their active participation across all fields, and on the necessity of establishing inclusive and broad-based governance through a national dialogue grounded in a constitutional order and comprehensive structure. It is crucial to underscore the need for the United Nations Security Council and all relevant partners to agree on an action plan with a defined timetable and specific conditions for implementing the report's recommendations and subsequent steps, including through appointing a special coordinator as recommended in the report. This ensures that all parties, including the people of Afghanistan, are well informed about the results of a structured, coherent, and principled international engagement. A clear understanding of the outcome and commitments from all sides is essential for fostering transparency and accountability. It's crucial to ensure the active and meaningful participation and contribution of Afghan women and girls in all discussions related to the implementation of the assessment report. No compromises should be made concerning their fundamental rights, freedoms, and involvement in relevant mechanisms and processes. I also wish to emphasize the importance of maintaining the conditionality of recommendations and a clear and benchmark implementation process. Otherwise, serious and existing concerns about the prospects of further relaxation and normalization efforts with the Taliban without observable changes or reversals in their policies and actions will not only remain but also grow stronger. These concerns have been expressed in open letters by representatives of diverse Afghans, including women activists and civil society groups. We recommend that their comments be attentively heard and thoughtfully considered in the subsequent steps of implementation report, recognizing the valuable prospects of women and society representatives. Mr. President, I would like to remind this Council that the international community about increasing calls by the Afghan people for rejecting any form of normalization with the Taliban regime that fails to respect human rights and international norms, and to remain focused on finding a solution that results in the formation of a truly inclusive, broad-based, and legitimate administration that is able to reflect the will and national aspirations of the people of Afghanistan. The path forward should be shaped by the voices of all Afghans, reflecting the country's rich diversity and the shared desire for peace and prosperity. The Taliban's refusal to engage in dialogue and their warped interpretation of inclusivity are both unfounded and false. True inclusivity requires the Afghan people to shape their future through negotiations involving credible representatives from all segments of society, including marginalized groups of women, youth, democratic forces, military sectors, career diplomats, civil society, and human rights activists. Those who are free from corruption, reputable public figures and professionals. It is based on the rule of law for justice and accountability. It is crucial to establish a responsible, representative, and legitimate government system based on the rule of law, justice, and accountability. The onus is now on the Taliban to prioritize Afghanistan's national interest by resolving the political impasse and respecting the legitimate concerns and demands of the Afghan people and international community. Mr. President, let me echo the UN Secretary General's appeal on reconsidering and halting of the forced return of Afghan refugees from Pakistan. I would like to express our sincere appreciation to the government and people of regional countries, particularly Pakistan and Iran, for graciously hosting Afghan refugees and ask for a compassionate and sustainable solution with the support of UNHCR and international community that prioritize the safety, well-being, and dignity of Afghan refugees. Mr. President, before concluding, I express gratitude to the UN Security Council for unanimously renewing the mandate of 1988 Sanctions Monitoring Team for another year. We anticipate that this renewal will contribute to reinforcing the effective implementation of sanctions regime, enhancing monitoring and reporting on the presence and activities of terrorist groups in Afghanistan and the region. In conclusion, let us reaffirm our resolve to not merely witness the unfolding tragedy in Afghanistan, but to actively participate in the creation of a just, inclusive, and representative future. A future where every Afghan child can aspire to education, where women participate as equals in society, and where the basic tenets of freedom and human dignity are upheld. The Afghan people deserve no less, and we, as a community of nations, must deliver no less. Our goal must be to support the establishment of an Afghan-led, Afghan-owned political process that upholds human rights, fosters inclusive and representative governance, and ensures Afghanistan's integration into the international community in a manner that's consistent with international norms and values. The Afghan people have suffered enough. It is time for the international community to stand in solidarity with them and work towards a future that offers hope, dignity, and prosperity. I thank you.
Agradezco al representante.
I thank the representative of Afghanistan for his statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Uzbekistan.
I thank you, Mr. President. At the outset, let me extend my gratitude to the Special Representative Rosa Tumbayeva for such a comprehensive report on the situation in Afghanistan. We would like also to thank Mr. Ramesh Rajitsan Khan from OSHA and Ms. Shaharzad Akbar for the provided information. Indeed, the current situation in Afghanistan is of a serious concern to the countries of the region as well as the world community. Uzbekistan stands for making sure that Afghanistan does not become a terrorist haven once again. In other words, no threats to the states of the region and the third parties should come from this country. Besides, it would be a huge mistake leaving Afghans to their own devices with no means to tackle an area of challenge and problems. Ignoring, isolating, and imposing sanctions are making the situation even worse for the ordinary Afghan people. At the same time, formation of an inclusive government accurately reflecting all segments of the Afghan society and ensuring basic rights and human freedoms, especially of women and girls and national minorities, still constitute the fundamental condition for establishing a long-term peace in Afghanistan. One more point I want to make is that Afghanistan is on the brink of a grave humanitarian catastrophe. To our knowledge, over the next 6 months, the UN World Food Programme needs at least $1 billion to deliver vital food and materials assistance to 21 million people. Uzbekistan dispatches humanitarian aid to the Afghan people on a regular basis, and as a close neighbor of Afghanistan, advocates for providing immediate humanitarian aid to this country. Dear colleagues, we also see significant progress the new authorities of Afghanistan are making in the fight against corruption, drug addiction, drug production and trafficking, as well as the organized crime. The security situation in the country has improved significantly. According to the Afghan Ministry of Interior, last almost 13,000 hectares of arable land were cleared of poppy. Nonetheless, the volume of trade in synthetic drugs such as methamphetamine increased sharply after the Taliban imposed a ban on the opium poppy cultivation. We cooperate with the Afghans within the framework of joint commissions on border and agricultural issues. We believe that in order to establish long-term peace in Afghanistan, a proper attention should focus on rebuilding the national economy as well as implementation of large-scale energy and transport projects. Among them are the construction of the Termez-Mazar-i-Sharif, Kabul-Peshawar railway line and the restoration of Afghanistan internal transport arteries. We also see potential in cooperation within the framework of the Free Trade Zone, which is being created in Termez, and its activities may be launched next year. Mr. Chairman, in conclusion, we would like once again to thank the leadership and team of UNAMA and other relevant UN agencies for their tireless work in Afghanistan. I would like to note that Uzbekistan views Afghanistan as a key factor in strengthening the regional connectivity, initiating the large macro region of Central and South Asia, the Middle East, and Eurasia as a whole. I thank you, Mr. President.
Se agradece al representante.
I thank the representative of Uzbekistan for your statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
In the name of God, the compassionate and merciful. Mr. President, I thank you for convening this meeting. I also thank Ms. Otambayeva, the Special Representative, and other briefers for their briefings. We take note of the Secretary General report on the situation in Afghanistan. The report highlights the unprecedented humanitarian challenges in Afghanistan, with over two-thirds of its population requiring assistance. The October earthquakes in Herat province directly impacted over 150,000 people, exacerbating the situation. The revised humanitarian response, having received only 35% of the required $3.23 billion as of November 11, aims to assist 21.3 million people. Iran emphasized the need for impartial humanitarian aid and the importance of lifting sanctions to support Afghanistan's economic recovery. Mr. President, despite the de facto authorities' anti-terrorism effort, the persistent presence of Daesh and Al-Qaeda affiliates continues to pose a severe threat to Afghanistan and neighboring countries. The United Nations documented 8 attacks by Daesh affiliates from the 1st of August to 7th November, specifically targeting civilians with a notable focus on the Shia community. Mr. President, as a directly impacted neighbors dealing with the repercussion of the situation in Afghanistan and hosting millions of Afghan people, Iran maintains its active engagement with the de facto authorities. This engagement was conducted both bilaterally and through neighboring and regional mechanisms like the Moscow format, aiming to enhance and improve the humanitarian situation and facilitate Afghanistan economic recovery. From 4 to 10 November, Iran hosted a delegation of Taliban economic officials. Discussions focused on strengthening economic and trade ties, covering aspects such as trade, transit, transportation, infrastructure, and railways. Mr. President, the de facto authorities have not taken significant steps to achieve genuine ethnic and political inclusion in Afghanistan. Instead, they impose severe restriction on women and girls, particularly affecting their access to education. In the Moscow format meeting on September 29 in Kazan, concerns were raised about restrictions imposed on women and girls, urging the establishment of a broad-based inclusive government. In this meeting, Iran proposed establishing a regional contact group for enhanced and coherent engagement with the Taliban and encouraging them to honor their obligations. Mr. President, we commend the efforts of Mr. Feridun Sinoglu during his mandate as a special coordinator and take note the independent assessment. The assessment underscored the imperative and increased and coherent international engagement with the de facto authorities and highlights positive elements, such as advocating for national political dialogue to foster inclusivity and reconciliation among Afghan political actors. This approach is crucial for uniting Afghanistan toward a secure, stable, and prosperous future. The report also called for swift international action to address the frozen assets issues and suggest a review of the sanction regime. Regarding the proposed mechanism in the recommendations, namely the International Contact Group and the appointment of a special envoy, Iran takes note but deems it premature to establish such mechanism. We advocate for thorough discussions and comprehensive examination considering existing regional mechanism and UNAMA's mandate. Moreover, addressing the challenges and concerns faced by the neighboring countries, which may differ from priorities emphasized by donors and other stakeholders, could pose significant obstacles to the success of establishing such a contact group. Importantly, granting equal standing to specific NATO countries, especially those accountable for the current situation in Afghanistan, without them fulfilling their responsibilities towards the Afghan people, in both unfair and counterproductive. Meanwhile, we emphasize that the international engagement should not only aim for normalization or recognition of the de facto authorities. Instead, it should contribute to improving the situation for the people, ensuring that they are the primary beneficiaries of any normalization process. In conclusion, we reaffirm once more our full support for UNAMA and the Special Representative of the Secretary General and emphasize the importance of maintaining their field presence. Iran remains steadfast in its commitment to close collaboration with neighboring countries, relevant partners, and the United Nations to promote lasting peace, security, and stability in Afghanistan. We hope that the de facto authorities will fulfill their international obligations, particularly in upholding their obligation to the neighbors. I thank you.
Agradezco al representante.
I thank the representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran for your statement. I now give the floor to India.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank you for convening this meeting, and I also thank the briefers, particularly Special Representative Rosa Otunbayeva, whom we have heard this morning. As a contiguous neighbor to Afghanistan, a friend to its people, and as a country with direct stakes in ensuring peace and stability in Afghanistan, allow me to place the following observations before the Council. 1. The situation in Afghanistan is still one of concern. The deteriorating humanitarian situation, compounded by natural disasters such as the earthquake of October 2023, have had a devastating impact on the lives of the people. It is therefore important for the international community to not lose its focus on Afghanistan. In this regard, we note the report submitted by Special Coordinator Feridun Sinoglu, providing his assessment as mandated by UNSC Resolution 2679. We have indeed read the recommendations contained in the report. As a long-standing partner to the Afghan people, India will continue to engage actively with other partners with the ultimate objective of securing peace and stability in the country. India already partners with several UN agencies on the ground and will continue to do so for the welfare of the people of Afghanistan. 2. The benchmarks set by the Security Council through its Resolution 2593 continue to guide the international community's approach towards Afghanistan. Our common and immediate priorities include providing humanitarian assistance for the Afghan people, formation of an inclusive and representative government structure, combating terrorism and drug trafficking, and preserving the rights of women, children, and minorities. 3. Humanitarian assistance to the people of Afghanistan needs to be prioritized given the distressing humanitarian situation in the country. India has delivered material humanitarian assistance to Afghanistan and has also continued its educational scholarships for the Afghan students. We have also partnered with various UN agencies, including the UN World Food Programme and the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime, in their humanitarian efforts. Our assistance will continue for the benefit of the people of Afghanistan. And as I conclude, Mr. President, let me state that India reaffirms its unwavering commitment to the people of Afghanistan. We will continue to be closely and actively involved in support of the Afghan people. Since this might be the last open meeting of the Council before the mandate renewal of UNAMA in March next year, I would also like to state here that we look forward to working closely with the pen holders to share our views as a neighbor of Afghanistan. Thank you very much.
I thank the representative of India for your statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Pakistan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I would like to congratulate you and the Ecuadorian delegation on your successful presidency of the Security Council this month. Pakistan welcomes this debate on Afghanistan. I would like to thank Special Representative Rosa Otunbayeva for her cogent briefing to the Council. We note the Secretary General's report on the latest developments in Afghanistan. Pakistan conveys its appreciation to the UN Special Coordinator, Ambassador Feridun Siniroglu, for his work on the independent assessment report. We also commend the leadership role of Ambassador Nosebi and the UAE delegation as the co-pen holder on Afghanistan this year. Mr. President, peace in Afghanistan is a strategic imperative for Pakistan. As noted in the Secretary General's report, the Afghan interim authorities have further consolidated their control of Afghanistan across all spheres of governance and brought some modicum of stability in the country. Yet, Afghanistan presents a complex and enduring challenge. On the positive side, law and order has improved, opium cultivation has reduced by 95%, action against Daesh is being taken, corruption has declined notably, and efforts are being made to operate the economy through domestic revenue collection and local budgets. Afghanistan's trade with its neighbors, including transit trade, has also increased significantly. But, Mr. President, there are serious challenges. Pakistan has been the main artery for the provision of humanitarian assistance to Afghanistan. Yet the humanitarian response plan, which aims to help 21.3 million Afghans, remains severely underfunded at 35%. We hope that the donor states will respond generously to the Secretary General's appeal to help the destitute people in Afghanistan. Second, the Afghan economy remains fragile, largely due to liquidity challenges, a dysfunctional banking system, and irregular cash flows, with no safeguards against terrorist financing. Smuggling into Pakistan through transit trade has also been a major problem, which we have stopped now. Pakistan supports early implementation of reconstruction and the regional connectivity projects in Afghanistan. Third, while opium cultivation has been reduced by 95%, there is an urgent need to provide support for alternative crop production to sustain farmers' livelihoods and prevent a reversal of the gains that have been made. And yet, Mr. President, the two issues which the Afghan interim government must implement its obligations on are, one, the restrictions that have been placed on women and girls' right to education and work. These edicts must be reversed. Some pragmatic solutions are possible. Pakistan will continue to work to develop such possible solutions. Two, the continued presence of terrorist groups in Afghanistan constitutes the most significant threat to Afghanistan and to the entire region and perhaps the world. While the interim authorities have reported some success in the fight against Daesh, the fact is that a number of terrorist groups are living in Afghanistan, evidently under the protection of the Afghan interim government. Pakistan, in particular, faces a major threat from the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan. The TTP and its affiliates have been responsible for carrying out a series of organized cross-border terrorist attacks on our soil, causing considerable loss of our civilians and soldiers and causing considerable damage to our military and other installations. We have lost hundreds of our brave soldiers and civilians in these attacks just this year alone. And last week, a TTP-affiliated group carried out a heinous attack on our security personnel in Dera Ismail Khan, resulting in the loss of more than 23 precious lives. These attacks have become more lethal and sophisticated since the TTP terrorists have acquired and use advanced military equipment. These weapons obviously originate from the considerable stocks left behind by foreign forces. Yet the question is, how did the TTP, a listed terrorist organization, secure these weapons? Pakistan demands that the United Nations, whether UNAMA or another agency, conduct a thorough investigation to elicit how these weapons got in the hands of the TTP and to identify ways of retrieving them. It is clear that the TTP has been given free rein to conduct cross-border attacks against Pakistan's border outposts and other installations. We also have clear evidence that the TTP receives support from our main adversary. Mr. President, the Security Council should invigorate the work of the 1988 Committee to secure action by the Afghan interim government against all these terrorist groups in Afghanistan and empower the monitoring team to analyze and inform the committee and this council about progress made in the context of counterterrorism in Afghanistan. Any process of engagement with the Afghan interim government should be conducted on the basis of the action that it takes against these terrorist organizations. Else, we will see the recurrence and proliferation of terrorism from Afghanistan, as happened prior to 9/11, threatening not only the region, but the entire world. Mr. President, Pakistan has indeed paid an enormous price for its 40 years of generosity towards Afghanistan. After 40 years, we continue to host 1.4 million registered Afghan refugees with little or no support from the international community. Since the Afghan interim government claims that peace has been restored in Afghanistan, it should work with the High Commissioner for Refugees to make preparations for the early repatriation of these Afghan refugees. There were another 2.2 million Afghans who are in Pakistan undocumented and illegally present there. These include 700,000 who crossed into Pakistan after the Taliban takeover. Besides the security threat posed by terrorist sleeper cells, many of these illegals are involved in drug trafficking, operate property mafias and other crimes. And the inflow of such large numbers has had a negative impact on Pakistan's economy and jobs market. The current plan to repatriate the illegal foreigners is an unavoidable compulsion on Pakistan arising from our legitimate security, economic, and social concerns. However, the plan is being implemented in as humane a way as possible. There is no forcible return except for a number of Afghan criminals in our jails. More than 98% of the over 244,000 Afghans who departed through Torkhan last month were voluntary returns. The Chaman crossing has a similar pattern. We have made exceptions for those who have proof of registration, for those who have the Afghan citizenship card, and now also for those who are considered vulnerable. These are besides the 60,000 or more who are awaiting for 2 years to be relocated to third countries. And we urge those third countries to accelerate their process in order to receive these people who they have agreed to receive as such and lighten the burden on Pakistan. Mr. President, we hope that Ambassador Feridun Siniroglu's assessment will enable the Security Council and all relevant stakeholders in the international community to adopt a comprehensive, long-term and realistic roadmap for Afghanistan's normalization. Any process of engagement with the Afghan interim government must be constituted on the basis of its response to the core concerns of the international community: respect for human rights, particularly the rights of women and girls, political inclusivity, and action to neutralize the terrorist organizations in Afghanistan, not only Daesh, but also the TTP and other entities which threaten the security of Afghanistan's neighbors. Pakistan will participate in the Secretary General's revived Doha format, and we hope that consensus will be reached on the recommendations of the report submitted by the Special Coordinator. I thank you, Mr. President.
Agradezco al representante.
I thank the representative of Pakistan for your statement. There are no more names inscribed on the list of speakers. The meeting is adjourned.